Skimmer, intake bay or negative edge? What is best for your pond? G'day, my name is Kev. My aim is to help people build and maintain ponds without spending a fortune. If that sounds like something that interests you, please stick around and subscribe and check out my website ozponds.com. The purpose of a skimmer, intake bay or negative edge is to sweep the surface of the pond of floating debris. Without this, the debris will just sink to the bottom and become a layer of sludge. The pump or pumps are housed in the skimmer, intake or negative edge, and this makes maintenance on the pumps much easier as they are more accessible. Maintenance on the pump and the biological filter is also greatly reduced as it's not constantly being clogged up by muck, as is often the case when the pump just sits on the bottom of the pond. And if you're trying to create something natural looking, this is great as you cannot see the pumps at all. So your first option is a skimmer. Skimmers are great for smaller ponds with not too much debris falling in. This is a professional grade skimmer. It has a removable leaf basket and coarse filter sponges that collect debris and protect the pump. It also has a fake rock lid that helps disguise it. These professional skimmers work really well, but they are expensive. I've found that I can create a simple skimmer out of a bucket and an off-cut of pond liner. If you're interested in building one of those, I'll link a video in the description. So like I said, a skimmer is a good option for small to even medium-sized ponds. But if you have lots of larger trees over the pond, you might find that you need to clean out the skimmer far too often. If that's the case, an intake bay might be better suited for your pond. An intake bay is pretty much just a supersized skimmer. Because it's bigger, it can hold way more leaf material. With a skimmer, if you have lots of debris fill the net or the bucket, it can potentially starve the pump of water. Like I said, this isn't really a problem if there's not many trees around the pond. So an intake bay is even less maintenance than a skimmer. Creating an intake bay is just like creating a DIY skimmer. You just need to have the water passing over a shallow and narrow area before the pumps. This will create some surface tension that will pull debris into the intake bay. From here, it can be scooped out with a net at your leisure. I'll also put a link down in the description on how I built this intake bay, nice and cheap. I'm really a huge fan of intake bays, and it's not just because they can be neglected, which suits a lazy person like me, but they're an awesome filter, not only mechanically by removing the debris, but also biologically by providing habitat for bacteria and microorganisms that keep the water clean, clear, and healthy. They are basically a bog filter in reverse. The water needs to pass through various size grades of rock and pebble to reach the pumps. This protects the pumps from sucking in large particles, but it's also being cleaned by those bacteria and microbes that are living on the surface of the rock and the pebble. And lastly, fish can swim in and out of an intake bay. Fish are inquisitive and will explore all their environment. For example, this little shabunkin loves swimming in and out of this skimmer. If you find it's becoming a problem that your fish are getting stuck in a skimmer, like this one, you can just remove the door. There's no door on my DIY skimmer, and I've found it to be pretty fish friendly. Anyway, let's move on to negative edges. Now, I don't actually own a pond with a negative edge, as I've decided it wasn't the right option for me. Having said that, they still offer some really awesome benefits. A negative edge is created when the water overflows from the pond down into a lower water reservoir. The pumps are housed down in the water storage zone, and the water is then recirculated back to the main pond, preferably through a bog or a wetland filter. Because the reservoir holds water in reserve, the level in the pond stays the same continuously. Whereas with the intake bay and skimmer, the pond level will rise and fall with evaporation or rainfall. Although you could maintain a constant water level with an overflow and an auto top-up setup. In a negative edge system, the water cascades or splashes out of the pond into the reservoir and it becomes highly oxygenated before travelling to the bog or wetland. This is beneficial as the majority of the bacteria and microbes inside the bog will consume oxygen as they clean the water. Of course, I would expect the water coming into a skimmer or intake bay to also have a good level of oxygen, as it is water on the surface where the exchange with the air is occurring. Another benefit to negative edge systems is that you have more water. Simply put, a larger volume of water is more stable temperatures and water parameters. Being able to store the water underground also can free up space in small yards where space is in short supply. There's two main reasons why I haven't used a negative edge in any of my ponds to date. The first reason is the cost. I prefer using thick EPDM rubber liner and multiple layers of geotextile, so creating a decent sized reservoir will add a substantial amount to my liner and geotextile cost. Then you also have the water storage blocks, which aren't cheap, but they are necessary to create that underground reservoir or tank. I recently made a video on some cheaper alternatives. If you want to check that out, I'll put a link down in the description. And the second reason is the inquisitive nature of the fish. At least in the skimmer and the intake bay, the fish can swim in and out and get back into the pond. But that's not going to be possible in a negative edge system. Once the fish goes over the edge, it's not getting back into the pond. Well, unless it's small enough to squeeze through the rock and pebble and mission impossible its way through the pump and back into the pond. Anyway, I hope that gives you some information so you can decide which system will work best for you and your pond. Remember, there's a few videos down in the description that will help you save some money with whatever system you decide to use. I hope this video has been helpful and I didn't bore you too much. If you enjoyed it, do me a favour and hit the thumbs up button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.